What's up, guys, and welcome to another edition of Kane's Hub, where we're going to be reviewing and going over my playoff bracket, how I see things sort of playing out. I did make a video yesterday on this. I decided I'm going to amend a little bit of a couple of things. I still think the same teams do get through, but I just want to go over a couple of things that I might have missed. So, start off. Let's go over the. We're going to go through and do each first place team in the wild card, both for East and West, and then we'll come back for the twos and threes. So let's start off in the West, though. We have the Colorado Avalanche going up against the LA Kings, and to me, this. I expect Colorado to be able to take care of their business here. I don't think, mind you, it's the Kings, so you never know, right? But the Kings of old aren't there anymore, right? We don't have the Dustin Browns, we don't have the Justin Williams, we don't even have Quick anymore, So I don't know. We do have Kopitar, bless his heart. I think I just don't think he's going to be able to do enough himself, because they got a decent supporting cast around him there with Byfield and a few others, but I just don't think that the LA Kings are going to have nearly enough to get over the Colorado Avalanche. If Colorado's smart, this is just a take care of business type of moment, and an opportunity for some of your guys to get going. I expect for Natchez, McKinnon, Makar, I expect all these guys to kind of come out swinging. It also allows for Wedgwood to sort of kind of ease into the crease, but I don't expect this thing to go more than 5. I think I predicted 6 games. Just giving LA a little bit of credit. I think with Panarin they might be able to sneak in a win or two, but that's about it. I don't see this being a long drawn out series. But yeah, so that's it for that series. Alrighty, guys. And the next series we're gonna go over is the Vegas Golden Knights taking on the Utah Mammoth. And surprise, I actually have the upset here. I think I've got 2 upsets in my bracket. 3, actually. 3. And this is one of them. I take that back. I have 4 upsets. But I think that the reason why I'm going with this one mostly is because I think Vegas is getting a little older at this point. I don't think they've got so much young talent. And where Utah is going to be extremely inexperienced in this type of situation, I think that their youth is going to shine right now. I think Cooley and Gunther and Sergachev and I just think that they've got a lot of good young pieces in place and they're going to be hungry at the end of the day. I think, and don't get me wrong, I don't think this is going to be. I just don't think it's going to be as one-sided as a lot of people are claiming it's going to be. Don't get me wrong. I think goaltending is going to be a big question mark for Vegas. And when you're going up against a younger team like what Vegas is going to be doing, who are extremely top-heavy, they've got their top 6 is very formidable at the end of the day. And they can easily, put 5-6 goals up against you. And I just think that that's going to be an issue for Vegas. I don't think Vegas is quite as strong as what they've been in the past. Sure, they're the first place in the Pacific, but that's not really saying much. But I think that at the end of the day, I think the Mammoth are going to be able to get around this team, and it's going to be quite the upset. I wouldn't be surprised if it triggers maybe a little bit of a roster shakeup from Vegas. But yeah, I definitely think that it's gonna be interesting. I think the West has got some really intriguing series, and I think that one might actually take the cake for round 1. As far as just being the most intriguing, who's gonna win, who's gonna shake out type of feel to it. But after that, let's go ahead and let's hit up the Eastern Conference. We have the Buffalo Sabres going up against the Boston Bruins. And as a longtime Hurricanes fan, I just want to say congratulations, Sabres. You guys deserve it. You guys, it's been a long road, but now that you're here, you're in a great position. You know what I mean? You guys have spent so long rebuilding, so many top end first, second round picks, that now that you're here, now that you actually made it, now you figured out the winning part of it, you guys have a really great potential to go all the way. That all being said, I think that the Buffalo Sabres will win this one handedly. I think this is, of all the matchups in the East, I think this one comes down to maybe just 5 games. maybe six, maybe six. You still got to respect what Boston's done this season. They got Swayman, they got Pasta still. They've got some players that can crunch it definitely, but in the end, again, so does so does Buffalo. When we're looking at Tage Thompson, we're looking at they've just got some big forwards and they've got some good size and good depth on defense as well. I think that they were smart in being aggressive. I think that the Parenko deal would have definitely got them over the hump for sure, as far as getting past this team. But I also think that this team, Boston being the first, might be one of the harder is going to be the harder out for them. Because the other two teams, regardless of who comes out of the Tampa Montreal series, they're going to have the edge on. Based on if it's Tampa, I think they beat up on Buffalo's beat up on Tampa for a couple of games this season, and then Montreal, I think they're just bigger than, and that's going to play a pretty big part in what happens. So the only concern with Buffalo is that if the goaltending starts to get a little shaky, I think it could all fall down on them. With all that being said, you're still here, and I still think that the Buffalo Sabres can and should take care of the Boston Bruins, and I'm going to call it for 6 games. All right. Next up, my Carolina Hurricanes are taking on the Ottawa Senators. I got to say this because I feel like the amount of disrespect that gets thrown at the Hurricanes' way is trivial to me. It's trivial, right? I saw a thing going around on X that was saying that there's doing the top rankings, the power rankings going into the playoffs, right? So I think they had one at Avalanche, 2 was the Stars, if I'm not mistaken, 3 was the Wild, and they had 4. 4 was the Pittsburgh Penguins. So, which if you followed the last week of the playoffs, that's sort of kind of a crazy thought because the last 10 games this season, the Penguins are 5-5, while the Hurricanes were 7-3, and the last 4 games they were playing, they were either the first line was sitting out or the second line was for the last 4 games. So what are we doing here? You know what I mean? It's sort of kind of trivial. It's a little got my head scratching a little bit with it. But I will say this: I think that the Hurricanes should have this one. If they don't, it's going to be a reflection on the GM more than it is anything else. Hurricanes fans, even Brendan Moore was on record saying we thought we were going to get somebody. We thought we were going to get a little bit more help, and he just didn't get it. And at the end of the day, Dolores you're gonna need Dolores for this first series. I think you're gonna need a little bit more of the first series than even the second, or if we get to the Eastern Conference Final or Stanley Cup. Ottawa's a heavy team, and this seems to be the kryptonite for the Hurricanes. Is going up against a little bit heavier teams. The other half of that equation is you're going up against the Kachuk brother. So we can all sit down and just assume, Brady hasn't made it in a couple seasons. I'm sure he gave Matthew a call, say, "Hey, what's going on with the Hurricanes? What's the best way to defeat them?" And they're gonna be like, "Hey, yeah, just hit him." That's the Hurricanes' biggest issue, is that they can't really, they're not really good with that. They didn't really attempt to fix it. I made a video a little while ago. I'll post the link above that talks about not they have the wrong roster build, essentially. They got too many small forwards, too many small centers, and they don't have that physicality that you sort of kind of need to be successful in the playoffs. Finesse is great. Finesse will get you 100 points every season if you have it through the regular season. But the teams that are most successful in the playoffs tend to be a little bit bigger, tend to be a little bit stronger. If Washington made the playoffs, I would have went ahead and got them right to the Eastern Conference Final, based solely on their size and their ability to just ground and pound, because that's the whole game. When you're in the playoffs, guys, for those, if you're not familiar with it, every hit's going to get finished. Every hit is going to take, like, imagine if it's like a health bar in like a video game. 1%, 1%, 1% every single time a hit happens. And then when you're at 50%, maybe something breaks. Or maybe now you're going to have a certain guy can't go that you normally rely on. So, like, you have to understand, long term, you need to have guys who can hit and can push the other team, because if you're using your 7th or 8th defenseman and they're still on their top six, it's just a different ball game. So you want depth. That's why they always talk about how important depth is. It's because next guy up has to be able to play at that same level as the other guys have. So, but anyway, getting away from that, if we're getting to actually breaking down the series, besides like the hitting part and the physicality side, the Hurricanes really match up well, special teams wise. Hurricanes were number one in the last from the Olympic break on. In power play, I think they were number two in penalty killing. So they've got they're great on the special teams. Goaltending is a little bit of a concern with me. I do think that the Hurricanes have to sort of kind of figure that out. You've got three goaltenders. Obviously, each one can't lose a game. You know what I mean? In this first series, I think the Hurricanes should probably start. If you want me to be honest with you, I think they start with Anderson. I think give Anderson the crease, let him sort of kind of figure it out. If we see him going downhill, or if he gets a little shaky, then you make that change. And I think that next person that goes in is Kochenkov. I think Kochenkov was playing relatively well towards the end of his time before he got injured. You're sort of hoping he can get back to that level pretty quickly, but then again, this is the playoffs. This is not the right time to find your game. Um, Bussy has looked weak. Look, I'm not gonna sugarcoat that. I'm not gonna try to say anything other than his goals against average has shot up. His save percentage has gone down. He looks like he got that contract and now he's a little bit more comfortable in it. And whatever little bit of focus he that little 2% more that he was able to give, that little bit extra focus he was able to give before that contract that made him so great, it's not there anymore. Now he's looking extremely average, and it's concerning. You don't have the ability in the playoffs. You get down 2 or 3 goals in a game, you're sort of kind of done, And the Hurricanes don't let up a whole lot of shots to start with. Going into this series, the Hurricanes they give up the least amount of shots per game. So it's just there's a lot of things that I'm sort of kind of concerned about. There's a lot of things that I'm wanting the Hurricanes to sort of kind of figure out, and I'm concerned that if this series starts going sideways, it could end very quickly for the Hurricanes. So with all that being said, though, Ottawa doesn't have the depth that the Hurricanes have. I also think that the Hurricanes have a better defensive core. Slavin, Keanu Miller, Gothesberg, Nishkinen, Walker. That's about as good as you're going to get as far as defensive pairings are going to be able to go. So all that being said, I do have the Hurricanes in 6 with this one. I do think that Ottawa probably stinks out the first two in Ottawa. Um, game 3 and game 4 in Ottawa. I think that the Senators will probably end up having. Hurricanes should be able to take game 1 and game 2 pretty easily. Um, yeah, but with all that being said, let's get into these 2-3 matchups. There's a lot of great ones coming up. So let's check it out. All right, so for the 2-3 matchup we're going to talk about next, we're going to talk about the Dallas Stars taking on the Minnesota Wild. Now, in a series where no one's hurt, everyone's playing at 100%, I think Dallas would probably win this one. But with Rope Hintz being down and being such an important contributor to this team, I think that's going to be a real setback for the Dallas Stars. Right now, he's projected to miss the first 2 games, which puts it out at least to mid next week. And I think that's huge. I think that you can't underestimate how important that is. Sagan's also out, expected to miss some time as well. And with all that being said, I just don't think that the Stars are going to have enough to get past the wall. We always knew these two teams were going to be we're sort of kind of destined to go up against one another, right? With just how quickly the Avalanche sort of kind of took off, right? So not having Hintz is going to hurt. I think the Wild have a both goaltenders of the two goaltenders. So I was talking about yesterday, right? There isn't after like Swayman, maybe Skinner, and there's not a whole lot of and Vasilevsky obviously in Tampa. There isn't a whole lot of skilled goaltenders on these teams. Definitely leaving a lot of room for. I think it's going to be one of the more higher scoring playoffs we've seen. That all being said, 2 of them are playing against one another this first round. Jake Ottinger has been just a rock for the Stars, and then you have to go through and look at what Gustafsson has done with the Wild. Um, they've also used a rookie whose name is eluding me right now, but I think that like between those two, I think that they're going to be fine. The Wild has more than enough talent. Getting Hughes as well. I think that was a huge piece for a bit. If I'm to be real with you, I think Bill Guerin was like all in for this season. He's like, look, we know we're going to be facing the Avalanche in the second round. Can we just got to build up and see if we can get past this first round, because the second round I think is going to be really close, right? Um, all that being said, I do think that the Wild is going to take this series in 6 games. I think this is going to be a heavy series. I think both teams are going to come. Um, we know that like a lot of these series are going to have like a good amount of hitting. This one I think will take the cake as far as the pure volume of hits. I think that the Wild with both Felinos, the brothers playing together, they're gonna want it. They're sort of kind of ready to play that rough and tumble type of hockey. Minnesota hasn't gotten out of the first round in several years. I think that is another part of Billy Guerin wanting to sort of kind of give this team a little shot in the arm as far as being able to get them above this. And with Rope Hintz being down for these the first 2 games, it's a golden opportunity for Minnesota to come in, um, sneak one, maybe even 2 games from Dallas at home when they're at in their barn, and then try to finish this up in 5 games. That all being said, I do think this is going to go 6. I don't think that the Wild's going to be able to get it done quite in 5. I think they'll be close, but I don't think they're going to be able to get it quite across the finish line. Um, but yeah, I think that's going to be super huge. The next Western Conference 2 teams we're going to go over is the Edmonton Oilers taking on the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim. Um, and I gotta say, this one, I heard some people saying that some of the Eastern Conference teams are really close. This one to me is actually the most intriguing. Um, I don't think that this is going to be a cakewalk for the Oilers. I think that the Oilers are actually not going to be able to get past the Ducks. Um, and I'm saying that because John Quinville knows how to coach a playoff team. I also think that Connor Ingram, who to my understanding is the one playing the games for the Oilers in net. I don't think he's going to be able to hold up against the pure just firepower that the offense can throw the Ducks offense can throw at him. Um, Not to mention, think about this as well, right? So we expect Connor McDavid to do Connor McDavid things, right? But he has to watch out for Trouba and Gudis now. Both of them wanting to win. Both of them, they're not going to take it easy. Like during the regular season, he might get a little bit more of a pass. Just like they're not going to go as hard. They're not going to finish every check against him. But we're in the playoffs now, so that's all out the window. They want to win, and the way you do that with Connor McDavid is you put a body on him. Why do you think he can't get past the Florida Panthers? Because they put bodies on him. So I really, really firmly think that the Mighty Ducks are actually going to come out on top on this one. And it's going to be a huge upset. It's going to trigger complete fallout in the Canadian media. And that's why I was sort of kind of alluding to, I think Connor McDavid will be done with the Oilers at the end of the season. I think that he's going to look at the situation. They don't have a whole lot coming up as far as prospects go. Um, I just think that they're not going to want to. They're not going to want to. They're not going to want to focus too much. He's not going to want to spend another year going through the same routine. And I think that the team that might look at to get him is probably maybe the Rangers. I think the Rangers would try to put together whatever they could to sort of kind of get him. But I'm not going to dwindle too much on this. I just think that this series doesn't match up the way the Oilers want it to. And I think that it's going to shine game 1 puck drop. The fact that, hey, he might be able to get around us on occasion, but as we put bodies on him in game 3 and game 4 and game 5, he's not going to be able to do anything. And I think he's going to, I wouldn't be surprised. The days that he's had a Cassian or a bigger guy around him that could really like protect her almost, they're gone, right? He doesn't have that anymore. So I don't think that I just don't think the Oilers are going to have it. And even if Jari were to come back, Jari's not the answer to the goaltending problems. And Connor Ingram, I think, is a very beatable goaltender. The other side of that is Dostal, I think is how you pronounce his name, Absolute stud, absolute stud. And then, like I said, I think the biggest factor in this one's actually going to be coaching. I think Johnny Quenneville has that team really well coached, and I think it's going to shine more so in the playoffs than it went in the regular season. These two teams aren't. There's not a huge gap between them. There's only a handful of points, you know, if any. I don't have the exact standings in front of me, but these teams are very close, I think, and I don't think it's everyone just wants to write in the Oilers because of Connor McDavid, but these other teams have got some really good players on them as well, and I think it's gonna be very interesting to sort of kind of see how this is all gonna shake out. So that all being said, I have the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim taking care of business and beating the Oilers in 6 games. All right, so next teams we're going to talk about: Tampa Bay Lightning and the Montreal Canadiens. I'm going to keep this one short and sweet. I think the Canadiens' youth is going to shine through here. I think that they have they've got a hell of a coach with Marty St. Louis, who has built a culture that's conducive to younger players being able to come in and really overachieve in these big games, these big moments. With all that being said, I think that the Tampa Bay Lightning have also just gotten a little bit older. They bring in Corey Perry, who is great on the third line. Maybe he gets a little bit of power play time, but I don't think necessarily that Corey Perry is going to be the one who's going to get them over the hump. Vasilevsky's still doing great things back there. Hedman still can do great things, but this team's just older at this point in time. The supporting cast isn't as good as it's been previously, and I still don't think John Cooper is exactly the best coach in the world. I think that Cooper has been he's been very fortunate to be able to have Stamkos and Kucherov and Vasilevsky and Point and some of these great talents that have come through the Tampa Bay organization. But at the end of the day, I think Mario St. Louis is going to end up being a better coach. And I think this is another game, another series, sort of kind of like some of the ones in the West, where the better coach is going to win. And right now, I think that the better coach is going to end up being Mario St. Louis. Goaltending, I would say, is probably more favored towards Tampa Bay. But after that, I think that uh, the Canadiens have a much much better forward group with Suzuki and Caulfield. I think that this really it's going to be a great series. I think this is going to be a very high scoring series, even with two good goaltenders. I just don't think Tampa Bay is going to be able to play the young men's game the way they're going to need to win. They're heavy. Don't get me wrong. Tampa Bay will probably try to pound the Canadiens into the ground. I just think that the youth of the Canadiens won't the youth will end up the youth and the finesse will overcome the grit. Where if you look at the Hurricane series where Hurricanes it's a mixture of young and old, right? The grit is Hurricanes aren't young enough to where like they're going to be able to get around the grit of it. Where I think the Canadiens are young enough. They do have enough skill where they can get around it. I think Cole Caulfield putting up 50 goals is huge for the organization, for the Canadiens, and for that fan base. Um, I just think that this is going to be a really good series, and I think that at the end of the day, Canadians come out and I think I put 6. Let's see here. I did have it in 7. I have it in 7. Canadians will win that in 7. So I think that's going to be a really really good series. And then the last uh, the second round we're going to go over is of course the Battle of Pennsylvania. Um, So, a little backstory: my grandparents are from the Pittsburgh area, so before the Hurricanes got here, had all Penguin swag, Mario Lemieux, Yager T-shirts, and everything else. Um, that all being said, running this, I try not to have too much of my heart in it. As far as like when I say my heart, I try to have more of my head than my heart in this one, in these videos, and trying to give solid advice on who I think is going to win. That all being said, I think the Philadelphia Flyers are going to come out on top on this one. It's not speaking to Crosby or Malkins or Letang or Carlson's. Any of these guys, they don't have the ability to completely take over a game. It's not that. That's not what we're going on. I'm still concerned about goaltending for the Penguins. I think that Flyers are going to play ground and pound type of hockey that we associate with the Flyers. And when you're playing that style against older players, it just normally doesn't end well. You know what I mean? Like that Philly crowd is going to expect them to ground them, to pound them into the ground. And I just don't think that the Penguins have the ability to combat that, if you know what I mean. Um, I can't look at the forwards for the Flyers and say, oh, well, clearly this person's better than this person. There's no one who on the Flyers roster who I think can compare to a Malkin or to a Crosby. But I do think that Trevor Zegras will make some dazzling plays. I think that the Flyers lineup has enough. They have the capability of scoring, and I think that they will figure out how to expose the Penguins pretty early on, and that's exactly what they're going to do. When the second they feel like, hey, if we finish a couple hits against Letang, he might turn over the puck because he's not as quick as he used to be. He doesn't have that ability to completely skate it from one end to end to one end to the other end, every other shift and be able to do it successfully. The second they start piecing that together, I think that's when they're going to end up taking over the series. That all being said, I think it's another series that goes to 7 games. By no way am I thinking that the Penguins are going to get swept or going to get walked, or the Penguins don't even have a chance of winning. I just think that at the end of the 7 game series, the Flyers will end up having won 4 as opposed to the Penguins 3. Um, I do think that the Penguins have the more than enough. They have the potential to come in here and wreck the Flyers in 5 games, right? I just think that in a 7 game series where there's a lot of like back and forth, next guy up, next guy, next man up type of mentality. I just think that at the end of the day, that the Flyers have what they need to be successful. The other half of that is I think that Rick Tocchet's a fantastic coach. Again, coaching is going to help a good team becoming a great team, and it's how a great team becomes a Stanley Cup champion is through coaching. And I think that Rick Tocchet, who was able to get these Flyers in, I think they have the complete potential to do a little bit of damage and get past the Pittsburgh Penguins. Um, but yeah, so that leaves us, going on to that this next round of teams. Um, so let's get into those. All right, heading back to the West, we have the Colorado Avalanche and the Minnesota Wild. We have the Utah Mammoth and the Mighty Ducks. So, when it comes to the Colorado Avalanche and the Wild, I'm going to try to keep this part of it short, not nearly as long. I think I've given you an explanation of why I think each team's good and the advantages that they have over that first round opponent. Now it's just going to be who has the clear cut advantage. I think that in a Colorado versus Wild matchup, Colorado has a clear cut advantage. I think is their offense is significantly better, and I think the Colorado's defense and the Wild's defense are very similarly built. I think that it plays in to the Wild's sort of kind of strength is that, hey, our defense is sort of kind of solid, and we're gonna ground and pound you with Kaprizov and then a couple other guys who can go in and score as well. That all being said, I do think that the Colorado Avalanche are going to come out on top on this one, and I'm going to call it Colorado coming out on top in 6 games. The next matchup we have is the Utah Mammoth taking on the Mighty Ducks. And this one's actually an intriguing one. This is the matchup where like two young teams that are both hungry, that are both eager to get to that next level, get their organizations to the next level. I think it's gonna be a really great matchup, and I think at the end of the day, I think Utah has the advantage here. I think Utah has the advantage because the Ducks, where they have Truba and Gudis who can both ground and pound, Utah has Sergachev who can actually ground, pound, and then pass the puck as well. Used to have a shot, doesn't really have that anymore. We're not hearing about the true bombs like we used to. And Gudis was never big on being a puck moving defenseman. He's more just a pound and a short pass to a forward or to his defensive pairing partner, right? I think that the forwards for Utah are better at the end of the day. Um, don't get me wrong, Anaheim has some great talent. great talent. But I just think that to me, I am more impressed with Utah based on having seen the game they played against the Hurricanes. They played them tight. They played them very well. And while the Hurricanes ended up winning 4-1, one of those was an empty net goal. And I just like based on what I saw from them, I saw a team that has potential to do some damage. So that all being said, I do think that the Utah Mammoth come out on this series and they come out in 7 games. So that leaves Avs Utah in the Western Conference Final. But let's jump over to the East. We have the Buffalo Sabres going up against the Montreal Canadiens. And this one I think is going to be a great series. This if both teams if this ends up being that second round, this one's probably going to be more exciting, the most exciting of all the teams, all the games, right? Um, Buffalo Montreal would those prices of those tickets would be astronomical first and foremost, just based on two great teams, young teams who have a complete potential of it's going to be one of those going to be a great series. It could really go either way. In 7 games, I'm giving Buffalo the advantage here only because I think that Buffalo, it's their size and depth at D. I think is going to be a little bit harder for Montreal to come in and sort of kind of be able to deal with. Um, I think that the difference ends up being the Sabres have such good defensemen that Caulfield and some of these other guys just aren't going to be able to get around them. The same way that they were able to get through a little bit older Tampa Bay Lightning team. Uh, and I also think that Buffalo has a really clear cut advantage on offense. Tage Thompson, Tuck, some of these guys are just they've been they've been playing really well, putting on points really well. A Lindy Ruff, Marty St. Louis series, I think would be just a lot of fun just from the coaching side of things. Grew up watching Ruff through as a Hurricanes fan, watching him do Buffalo and then Jersey and a couple other places. So just seeing him back behind Buffalo sort of kind of felt really right. And then just seeing him coaching this team and coaching them well is awesome. So, at the end of the day, I do have the Buffalo Sabres winning this one, and I'm going to say that they're going to win this one in 7. That leaves us to the Carolina Hurricanes taking on the Philadelphia Flyers. Now, as a Hurricanes fan, this one has me. This is probably the most concerned I'll be, because I feel like it's the epitome of Flyers hockey is rough and tumble, and I feel like that's the biggest way to expose the Carolina Hurricanes. That all being said, the Philadelphia Flyers have played the Hurricanes really well all season. I think I saw each game went into was either in OT or was tied by 1 goal. All 3-4 matchups. So the Philadelphia Flyers know how to play the Hurricanes, and on top of that, they know how to expose the Hurricanes as well. So the Hurricanes, though, have a significantly better defensive core, significantly better offensive core. I dare to see even a better goaltending situation with the three-headed monster that they do have. Um, but yeah, with all that being said, I think that the Hurricanes do come out on top in this one. But this one's gonna be a 7 game, brutally hard series where I can assume a couple of injuries are gonna happen, just based on the fact that it's going to be a tough series when some of your forwards are under. You've got significantly 3, 4, 5 guys under 6 foot, and that's the core of your forward base is under 6 foot. You play a rough tumble team, you're gonna get lit up essentially. And I figure that between Ottawa and then now Philly, if the Hurricanes can get through those 2 series and actually still be healthy, the conference final is going to be a hell of an entertaining series. Um, so that leaves us with Buffalo, Carolina, Abs, Utah. And from this point in time, your usual suspects take over. I think that in the end, the Avalanche handedly beat Utah. Um, the Pacific was such a mess, to say it politely, that whatever team sort of kind of came out of it was destined to face a central team that was just significantly better. So I would have the Avalanche out of their series in 6 games against Utah, and 6 games. I mean, it might be 5 to be honest with you. Hell, it might even be 4. But that being said, I think Utah, for only being there third season in Utah, it's gonna be a huge advantage for them. They've looked good, and I'm super excited for that market. That all being said, here's the asterisk with this next series with Buffalo, Carolina. Right, the team that's going to come out of this is going to be the most healthy team. Right, if Darlene goes down, if Tuck goes down, if Thompson goes down, Hurricanes are going to win. If Jarvis goes down, if Slavin goes down, if Keanu Miller goes down or Gothisbehere, Buffalo Sabres are going to win. I think that is the most logical way to look at this. These two teams, I think, are play really well against one another. They did it all season. I think that the Sabres have a lot going for them. I also think that the Hurricanes' defensive crop will end up being the difference one way or another. Um, where Buffalo's defense is big, Hurricanes defense can move the puck better and shoot is going to produce more points from there. So that's going to be a huge difference going back and forth on who's going to actually end up winning the series. That being said, I'm a Hurricanes fan, so I do think that the Hurricanes will find a way to stay healthy enough throughout the first two rounds of playoffs and be able to get past the Buffalo Sabres. But I also think that it would not surprise me at all if the Buffalo Sabres end up coming out on top. With all that being said, that puts us to an Avalanche Hurricanes Stanley Cup final, where I end up thinking that the Hurricanes will end up winning. And this is probably going to be the more lengthy of the conversation, me explaining why exactly I think. I'm not just a homer. There is a little bit of thought to it all, right? So at goaltending, I think we'll just start there. I think it's a weak point for both teams. I think that Scott Wedgwood has played well. Mackenzie Blackwood has played well. I think both of them have the ability to come in, steal games when they need to. But I also think that their teams bail them out a lot as well. Um, with Colorado, hey, if we let in four, we gotta score five, and I think that's sort of kind of been their mentality for a while, and it's done them well. And when you have Natchez and McKinnon and you're sort of loaded up front and McCarr, in on the defensive side, you can do that. You can play that style of game. Um, with the Hurricanes, it's been a little bit more by committee. Um, all three lines can score. The top three lines can score on any given night. We've seen Ehlers go off a couple of times on the third line, playing with Stahl and Martinook. Could you imagine if he was playing with somebody more skilled than like Stahl and Martinook? Stahl is the defensive side. Martinook is the engine that that starts that line. With his forechecking ability, and Ehlers sort of kind of creates from the defense, essentially from his defense, be it Gothisbehere or be it Niskanen or whoever, that the two of them end up pairing up to be able to get with Stahl with the net front and Marty playing retriever. So with all that being said, I sort of end up giving the Hurricanes more of the advantage on the forward side of things than I do uh, than what I do with the Avs. And it's not because there isn't that superstar level. We've got Aho, we got Svetch, we got good players. I would say like solid. If we're not quite superstar, but good hockey players. But if McKinnon gets shut down by Slavin, or if Natchez runs into issues with Niskanen, who's scoring goals for the Avalanche? You know what I mean? I guess that becomes a new question, right? It's like, hey, look, if we start taking out some of your superstar level talent, who's putting up points for you? You know, and that's where I think the Avalanche might fall into a little bit of some problems. Is that Slavin is going to be able to shut down the McKinnon line. What they would probably do is they'd probably load it up a little bit heavy, and you might see a Slavin Gothisbehere, you might see a Slavin even Keanu Miller, to where Keanu Miller has a little bit more size to it, and then it also protects. Slavin's good at covering up mistakes, and I think that sometimes Keanu Miller gets himself into a little bit of trouble with it, but that's why you have Slavin on the team, right? So with all that being said, I think that the Hurricanes sort of kind of have the advantage in sort of all three areas. Um, but but then again, this is why I sort of kind of went so with Buffalo as well. It comes down to injuries. If the Hurricanes start missing out on a Jarvis or a Slavin, especially in the final, it's anyone's game at that point in time, and that's where it's going to be really hard for like as a Hurricanes fan to say like. Slavin goes down, more than likely we don't get past Buffalo, and we definitely won't get past the Avalanche. And I hate to put it all onto one player, but I mean that's the truth of the matter. Is our defense got significantly better when Slavin came back. And I would say it probably wasn't until maybe a week or two after the Olympics that we sort of kind of saw Slavin more in his looking a little bit more like himself. I feel like he was injured beforehand. I think he went down in like the first week of the season, and then he didn't come back until a week before the Olympics. Played the Olympics, and then a couple of weeks later, he started looking more like his usual self, feeling more comfortable in the system. But that all being said, I could easily see the Avalanche winning, and I could also easily see the Buffalo Sabres being in the playoffs, and not Hurricanes, or in the final, not Hurricanes. But with all that being said, guys, I appreciate the marathon. You guys following me on with this. This is probably one of my longer videos. But if you guys have a different opinion, you see things a different way, I'm sure some of you guys are gonna love the Oilers losing to the Mammoth. But it's sort of just the way I see it. A couple years ago, I accurately predicted it was in the top 20 for the bracket challenge. So I'm pretty good at this stuff. I watch a lot of hockey. I might be a Canes fan, but I also ingest a lot of hockey on a pretty much a nightly basis at this point. Um, but yeah, guys, if you love, I would really appreciate a like or a follow. Helps the channel out. With the finals going on, with the Stanley Cup playoffs going on, I'm pretty much going to be making these probably a couple times a week, giving my takes, or at the very least do a couple shorts here and there with upsets and whatnot. I am looking to do some live streams as well. Um, but yeah. Anyway, guys, I appreciate the watch. You guys have a great one now.